hands, and it's just a really neat piece. And then there's a Chewbacca as well. This is the cruder one I found. Obviously they've changed the arms, so he's holding his bowcaster up against his chest, and it's really not that well done, but it's interesting. And this one's much nicer. Very similar to the Vader in quality. It's solid, really heavy, nice details, really well finished. It was holding a weapon at some times. I don't know if Chewbacca ever used a lightsaber, or if that was a gun or what, but it's gone now. These are pretty cool. I don't know what these are. I've seen them. I've seen also some. I think at Sansweet's house. Otherwise, I've never seen them. Excuse me. Yeah. Well, the Chewbacca's interesting. He's got cool hair that's kind of like made from, rolled up pieces of clay. It looks like. But the styling to me suggests 90s or Audi's. It's kind of like got a hip hop flavor, like a graffiti flavor, especially that C-3PO. And there's Vader and Yoda. Vader's got a mouth which looks like something out of the Hellraiser movies, and Yoda just looks like he has gas. Okay, so moving on from ceramic stuff, this is just a few of the stuff to transition from my ceramics into the stuff these guys are going to do. This is a bootleg or a knockoff lamp. It runs by heat, so when you turn it on, the heat generated by the incandescent bulb forces this thing to rotate, and then it casts kind of shadows on your wall, Star Wars shadows. So it's a really neat item. Here's a detail of Luke and Leia on there, obviously pretty funny looking. Vader and some stormtroopers. Vader seems to be playing air guitar. It's an interesting detail. Everyone knows what this is, right? It's a knockoff of one of the most famous movie posters of all time, the Star Wars Style A. You can see that whoever made the knockoff kind of changed Vader's head, the direction a little, and moved the characters around, and it's obviously not as successful as the original, but it's still pretty interesting. And they made knockoff plush Star Wars as well. There was never a plush C-3PO, although there was an R2-D2, so this is like one of the few plush C-3POs from the vintage era that you're likely to see. It looks a little bit like the Gimp from Pulp Fiction, made over as a stuffed animal. It's got fake pleather kind of body with some fur on there, and it's got a weird pleather monobrow. And just so he's not lonely, I also acquired this R2-D2. And he's got odd pleather control panels and some kind of like disco tape on there, I guess, to make him look futuristic. Both of these items were supposedly, well, I know one of them was acquired on the Jersey Shore as a Carnival prize, and I figure the C-3PO might have been as well.
It was made in Jersey City.
It was made in Jersey City according to the tag. Really, something this ugly almost has to come from Jersey, so I think that's probably accurate. John's from New Jersey, so that's a swipe at him. But anyway, just really odd items. But probably my favorite of this whole thing, and one of the weirdest, and maybe someone here can shed some light on what this is this mystery sign, which is just a completely homemade bootleg thing that was discovered on eBay earlier in the year, and I swiped it up because it was just too weird not to get. It's a photo that's been laminated to a piece of stained wood, and it says, "Your source for the Force," so it seems like they're advertising some product or something. I don't know if it's a store or what they sold. You can see by the dime that's there in the lower right corner how big it is. It's a big sign. The best guess I've heard is that it's for an auto dealership, and these are the folks who worked at the dealership. And you can see that there's a little, it's not a car, but it's like an A-Wing fighter that they're in. Here's a close-up of these crazy people dressed up in their crazy costumes, including a pretty manly Princess Leia. I'm not sure if that's a man or a woman, but whoever it is, it does not look like Princess Leia. They probably could have had someone else model that outfit. This guy seems to be pretty happy to be stuck inside that R2-D2 canister. He's got like a huge smile on his face. And I'm just not sure. It could be the Dianoga, or it could be an Ugnaught with scabies. I'm not sure what that is. Yeah, it looks like Sigmund the Sea Monster. He's got a tail and scales, and I can't figure out what Star Wars character that is. And Star Swords. So lightsabers were huge, obviously. So you get lots of knockoffs of lightsabers. These are called Star Swords. You can see there's kind of a Star Wars-ish quality to it, but it's not quite enough to violate any copyrights. The actual toy looks like that. They have pirate hilts on those things. But I'm sure they popped right away as soon as you started using them.
Vader actually from Cylon.
Yeah, he does. He looks maybe a little bit Cylon from Battlestar Galactica. And that's my end, so thanks.
So we're going to pick up where Ron left off with Sabers. This one's one of your standard Chinatown knockoff. It's actually called the Lucky Star. And you can see that it's the Star Wars victorious weapon. Got these, the laser swords. I actually think these are pretty neat. They look very much like actual Star Wars. The logo, it's the characters though. The child in the blue jeans and t-shirt. Vader, who looks kind of more like a panther than Vader. And if you look closely, it says glows in the dark after use. I don't know, but I'm thinking it should glow while you're using it. The Luke one, actually, if you look down by his feet, there's a white tag. It actually had Swedish distribution. The other ones, you know where the other ones actually traced to? There's another set, the Star Beam. For years, when I started collecting, I had a saber when I was a kid. It never matched anything that I saw. I even asked Ron about it, and he said it sounded more like the Takara one, but there was just no distribution. I actually got this picture from Pete Vilmer for the panel, and that's the actual saber that I was looking for when I was a kid. I never knew what it was. Turns out I actually had a knockoff when I was a child. You can see the great picture of Luke on here, and if you look at the copyright information, it actually had distribution in New York, so it probably is the one that I had since I grew up in Jersey. Here's another one, the Force Beams. This was one of the earliest knockoffs known. The US version of the ad right here was pretty tame. You know, they kept it Star Wars-ish, but you can definitely tell what it was. Whereas the UK version, I guess they thought they were far enough away from Lucasfilm's lawyers that they pretty much went all out with this one. And if you look, Leia actually has a saber, so I don't know, maybe George got his idea from them. All right, this is one of the earlier lines also, probably one of the more important lines for knockoffs. These have been well known for years. They were thought to be put out by a company called Heritage, but recent information research says that it might have actually been put out by a company called Archive. This was the first set of them. They were available unfinished like this in gold as keychains, various ways. Then there was a second line that was put out that was definitely by Archive, sculpted by Neville Stockton. That contained other figures like the Cantina Band and such. But what happened was they flirted back and forth with these Star Wars pieces and were almost sued a couple of times by Lucasfilm. I think the idea that they came from Heritage might have been because they were originally seen in a Star Trek Galore catalog, and Heritage actually did a line of Star Trek miniatures, so that might have been where the information came from originally. But the Archive later pieces are even later versions of this. After the lawsuits, what they did is they tried to go back in and add details to them to make them less Star Wars-like. If you look, the Chewbacca on the right actually has ears and a tail. The Bantha was also from the first line, and if you look on the right, you'll see that they actually included a horn on this one, kind of like a unicorn Bantha.
I think the idea there too, John, is that when you got them, you could cut off the horn.
Right.
Yeah.
This is perhaps two of my favorite. The R2 looks like he's ready for Disney, and obviously Lucasfilm's lawyers were too hard on them, so they thought Disney's lawyers would be much less litigious. This Stormtrooper has bunny ears and webbed feet, and he actually comes with a tail also. There's other figures in the line. This second series line is pretty difficult to come by. I couldn't even get pictures of all of them for it. There's a Vader that has antler horns. There's another one that has a duck bill. There's a Tusken Raider that has ram horns. So they really did a lot of the line and just added these little accessories to them to try and not look as Star Wars like. I think they did a good job. What do you guys think? I really don't know much about this thing, but it's just awesome. I got this from another collector a while back. Looks to be of Japanese style. It's a pretty early bank. The face actually almost looks a bit ape-like. Ron had some stuff that he showed that had a little bit of the Planet of the Apes in there, and there's a few other pieces in here that have a bit of Planet of the Apes influence too, so there was definitely a lot of crossover with this knockoff stuff, where they just took the most popular things of the time and just kind of merged them to get, well, things like this. These are actually really high on my want list, so if anybody out there has one of these, I would love to get these. These were German Carnival prizes. I've only ever seen these once. A collector named Wolfgang from Germany supplied us with pictures of these, and they're a couple inches tall, made of solid ceramic. We don't know if any other ones were available in the set, but they were definitely available in carnivals over in Germany. The Dutch line of knockoffs. This is probably one of the more famous lines. These actually have quite a bit of collector appeal. So even collectors not into bootlegs tend to pick these up. There's 5 figures in the set, 4 pictured here. Also thought to be carnival prizes. The loops on their head and the strings, they're reminiscent of the Cupid dolls you would see at carnivals hanging on the strings. They would be prizes that you would win at stands. Vader comes complete with a sword instead of saber. The R2 actually has movable arms. The thought is that they were based on early photography and sideways shots of R2. They had thought instead of full legs that he might have had arms. They were available in 2 sizes, 5-inch and 3-inch. They are considered and have been considered Dutch for years, but I've also found over the years there's been distribution in Germany and Australia of these figures. This is the final figure from the set, and the toughest one. I've only ever seen 2. From this picture, you might not be able to tell that it's part of the set, but it actually is. The other one that I saw has a loop on the head, and all of the figures have a round circle on the back. It's an ejector pin mark for removing them from the molds, and this figure has the same mark, so it's definitely from the same line. But I honestly have no idea where they got the picture of Chewbacca when they made this thing. We're going to move on to some early buttons now. Space Wars button, although it says made in Hong Kong, this piece had distribution in Australia. Star Wars. There are a lot of examples of Car Wars and Star Wars, and a lot of companies tended to use Star Wars illegally as a marketing point. This particular R2, if you look at him, he's got rollers for his 3rd leg and paintbrushes for his arms, and it looks like bottles of soda in his head, so it was just a piece used to marketing tool for budget stores. May the source be with you. 3M even got in on the illegal use of Star Wars style to market their products. Maybe it was 3M that your sign came from.
Their source for the
I really don't know too much about this. Alphadrome, a pretty famous robot form, was supplied the picture by them. It's an AM radio of some sort, but I don't know much about distribution or anything else. It's just blatantly obvious that this is definitely an R2 piece. If you look at the detailing on the arms again, and the face is definitely of a Cylon, so it's a late 70s piece. It's probably one of my favorite belts. This is actually a picture of one that used to belong to Ron years ago. The detailing on it is just incredible. If you look at the little R2s with the feet and the weird floating head 3PO out there, but let the Force be with you is just the best. I mean, you're trying to not steal too much, but it's pretty blatant what that is. In the 70s, there was a style of plastic robots that came out of Japan, the Horikawa style of attacking Martians robots, and even Star Wars was in